Hi, I'm Dr. Nadia Saba, the president and founder of Dr. Greenhouse. We are an HVAC, we're a mechanical and agricultural engineering firm that specializes in HVAC design for indoor farms and greenhouses. Greenhouses is where I got my start trying to grow mushrooms in a greenhouse. Talk about challenging. We're trying to grow, a crop that likes it damp and cool in a greenhouse in southern Idaho. We had a humidity control problem, but the opposite of what everyone is normally thinking about. We couldn't keep it wet enough. That for me was my aha moment 22 years ago, that I wanted to help farmers control their environments. So fast forward, went to PhD, did my PhD at the University of Arizona, where I studied greenhouse production of tomatoes and had a special focus on water use efficiency. So it's not always about energy. Sometimes it's about other resources that we are also trying to conserve in our farms. Enough about me. You're going to hear plenty from me later. I'm going to let my panel here introduce themselves, and I think some of them have some slides to share with all of you. All right, thanks.
So hi, I'm Tim Kniff. I'm the co-founder and executive vice president of Little Leaf Farms. It used to be Backyard Farms. Little Leaf Farms. We're 5 acres of hydroponic lettuce in Devens, Massachusetts. It's an NFT mobile gutter system. Should I show the video now? Or?
Yeah, let's do the video.
So do the video real quick.
I was always interested in locally grown food. I've been involved with greenhouses for most of my life.
Paul called me up and said, hey, listen, this lettuce business still hasn't been figured out yet.
I felt strongly that we could do it a different way, grow local, and then deliver a better, superior, fresher product. We basically have learned from, I think, the best practices around the world and found our own unique way of operating here at Little Leaf Farms. Over 95% of all the lettuce that we consume is grown in California and Arizona. We're 3,200 miles away from where they're growing these products on the West Coast. But for us, it's simpler because we cut it, we deliver it, and it's in the store within 24 hours. We're successfully competing against the proven West Coast operations with close to 10 acres under glass.
People didn't know what good lettuce was. And then all of a sudden, we reset the expectation.
We're all about giving the plant what the plant needs and taking away all stresses.
We're not in charge. The plants are the ones that are in charge. We're just living in their world.
Hydroponic means grown without soil.
So it's way easier for the plants. They don't have to, work. They just can take it up and enjoy the sun and just grow.
Big believer in the sun. It's free.
The light we are running from solar fields, the water we collect from the rooftop and reuse, so we throw nothing away.
People ask us, what are you doing to the lettuce? It's what we don't do to the lettuce. We never get the lettuce wet. We never spray it with anything.
My family eats the lettuce. All my colleagues eat the lettuce. And so I don't want to have pesticide residue. I don't want to have herbicide residue.
We don't make it travel miles. We don't let it sit around. We don't triple wash it over the course of moving it through some chlorinated waters for it to have kill steps in it, because we don't need to.
And we're basically feeding people's families, and that's a big responsibility.
I really believe this is the right way to grow lettuce. I think that it's a lot more sustainable, it's a lot more efficient, it's a lot safer, and it also comes up with a better quality product.
New England at one time was a huge food producer. We fed ourselves. And I love the fact that we can be part of the catalyst and being a driver here. And as we succeed in New England, we look forward to going to other regions and doing the same thing.
So that's us. Paul's the president and CEO. He was originally supposed to be here. got unavoidably detained and asked me to come in instead, so I appreciate the invitation. I've got some slides, but I'll do those later, I guess. You want me to do the slides now? Or?
No, you can go ahead and do the slides now.
Okay, could you cue my slides, please? So like Paul said, basically we're a technology taker as opposed to a technology maker. And one of the things that we do is we take a look at where the technology comes from. And basically, it's the Netherlands. Pete, our grower, is a fourth generation Dutch grower. And basically you take a look is that, there's a country the size of New York State, about a tenth the size of California, and the number 2 exporter of food in the world. And the reason that they do that is simple. It's greenhouses. So I'm not sure how many people are familiar with Holland or the Dutch greenhouse industry, or in particular the Westlands, which is a picture of this. They've been at it for a long time, and in terms of continuous improvement, they're there. Not just the greenhouse growing industry, but also glass manufacturers, water systems. The growing system that you saw in our video is actually from Finland. The Dutch had not figured out what we felt was a good lettuce growing system. It already figured out the tomato industry, cucumber industry, pepper industry, obviously the flower industry. But lettuce and leafy greens they hadn't figured out yet. We actually found a Finnish company that was growing lettuce for about 5 years in the Arctic Circle that we took. We basically took it in, brought it in, and then basically continued to refine and retrofit it. The one thing I would say in all of these sessions that I've gone to and listened to people is that I'm a produce guy. I've got 30 years in the experience. My first job was selling pineapples for Dole into the Hunts Point Terminal Market in New York City, and I've gone from there. It's about the product. And there's not a lot of discussion about product in these sessions, and maybe it's because of the audience, but the one thing I would say is that we focus in on the product, the variety, our product strategy, how we're going to get to market, because the market's being served. People that want to put up greenhouses and feel, well, I'm going to have a local product and everybody's going to beat a path to my door. That is not the case. You have to come in and be able to compete at, if not better, than the market that's currently serving us. So that's basically our view is the Salinas Valley. Since we have opened, we've been operating for 3 years, we actually have the #1 SKU. Our baby crispy green lettuce is the #1 selling salad in New England from a single SKU. We beat organic baby spinach last year, which we're pretty excited about, and we're continuing to grow. And basically, it's my job is I came from backyard farms. We ran a 42-acre tomato business out of Maine, and I had proven basically relationships with all these customers. So we're in over 2,000 grocery stores in New England, and we're having a tough time keeping up with demand. But you have to get traction in with these guys if you're going to actually sell something. Our business is all about scale. We're looking to basically compete head-to-head with the Salinas Valley for shelf space and share a stomach. And that's what we've been basically doing. So that's it. Those are my slides.
I'm Dave Nichols, Director of Strategy for App Harvest. We're building a 60-acre lettuce facility, tomato facility in Moorhead, Kentucky. We're scheduled to open up September of this year. It's kind of our view that there's a huge opportunity to build greenhouses at scale in the United States. Some of the support our view here is there's a high demand for food. We need 70% more food in the world by 2050. Sustainability is a big topic across the investment community and the economy. Boost of acreage, really in America, we have between 1,000 and 2,000 acres, while as Tim said, in the Netherlands they have more than 20,000 acres, second largest exporter of agricultural products in the world, so it's a great model. There's a lot of room for growth in the US. Ag tech ecosystems are successful. The Netherlands is great, 20,000 acres. Leamington, Ontario, these facilities seem to benefit from clustering, improving health care. 1 in 10 Americans eats enough fruits and vegetables. Just imagine if we can get that up to 2 or 3, how we'll grow the market. increasing interest in farming. Average age of the farmer in the U.S. right now is 58. I mean, we really think controlled environment ag has the opportunity to bring young people into agriculture, really make it cool again. It's a technology. It's a big opportunity and a big challenge. And economic development. Right now, we're importing 4 billion pounds of tomatoes from Mexico. We think, why not bring that production home? The trends are in our favor. Increasing demand for plant-based foods. You see that with Burger King is selling a plant-based food. There's got to be a trend here. Veganism is increasing, and need for innovation. We're not going to be able to feed the world the way we're growing right now, so we need to have some technology, and I think controlled environment agriculture is that technology. Over the summer, the UN IPC came out with a really interesting report on food systems and climate change. It's really the best advertisement you could see for controlled environment agriculture, basically saying climate change is affecting the way the bread baskets of the world where food is grown. We're going to need more food. The only way we're going to get there is technology, and all that technology points to greenhouses and controlled environment agriculture. The UN Sustainable Development Goals, we use these all the time. There's 17 of them. It's a great tool for going into the sustainable investment community. But we chose these 6, but really greenhouses can fit into 13 out of the 17. So it's really it's a sustainable business. When we started App Harvest, we knew we just couldn't drop a greenhouse into the middle of Kentucky and be successful. We had to build a community around it. We really set out to build an ecosystem. We started that from day one. A little bit about why Kentucky. I always got to get my sales pitch in here. From Kentucky, we can reach 70% of the U.S. population in 1 day's drive. It's a great place for a produce hub, and energy prices are relatively low. Record amounts of rainfall the last 3 years, and easy access to natural gas, and really the most important kind of the mission for our company is the labor force in Kentucky. So as you all know, the coal industry has taken a big hit over the past 4 or 5 years, lost tens of thousands of jobs. Our view is we need a new industry to come and revive the region. These are some of the hardest working people in America. Labor is a huge challenge in all greenhouses, so we figured it's a great spot to kind of come in and build a greenhouse and start a new industry in Appalachia. We started a ground game from the beginning. We knew it wasn't going to be easy day one, we got to have 285 employees working in our greenhouse, so we've had a community outreach effort since day one. We've got MOUs with 4 of the local addiction recovery care centers, so obviously opioids are a huge issue around the country, even worse in Appalachia, so we've got a program where we transition the clients from recovery into the workforce, into the greenhouse. Government, I mean, we think government's a big issue. We work with state, local, federal, and even international governments. We had a meeting with Sonny Perdue. Controlled environment ag is very much on his radar. He's visited a facility in Georgia, in his home state, and recently did a trip to the Netherlands to get a kind of a view of the Netherlands ecosystem. We had the opportunity to pitch controlled environment ag to the UN Security Council, of all people, that came to Kentucky. Our CEO got an audience with them, sat down, talked about the industry, and obviously it's really a global opportunity right now. China's adding thousands of acres a year, not thousands, hundreds of acres a year. Russia's adding a lot of acreage. There's a lot of activity, or at least talk of activity in the Middle East. So it's really a global opportunity. And most importantly, education. We realized we got to create an ecosystem. We need farmers, we need people to be excited, kids to be excited about agriculture. So we started last fall a ag tech education program in Shelby Valley High School, which is in Pikeville, Kentucky, right in the middle of coal country. The program has been very successful. 90 kids signed up for 33 spots where we teach basic horticulture and plant science, and then App Harvest put in a freight farms unit on campus there so the kids get classroom training, and then some hands-on growing experience in the container, growing leafy greens. And at the college level, we're engaged with all 5 local universities: University of Kentucky, Berea College, Eastern Kentucky University, Morehead State, and University of Pikeville. So we just finished a 8-day trip to the Netherlands with 10 professors from the universities, just kind of Dutch government sponsored the trip, just really giving them exposure to what's possible if we can make this ecosystem happen. So that was a great trip. So that's kind of a little bit about our company and our playbook, and follow us on social media leading up to the launch here in September. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kale Harbick. I work at USDA in a new position, formerly at Cornell, but I work for ARS, the research arm of USDA. I just wanted to spend a few minutes talking about some of our upcoming research projects. First of all, Virtual Grower is software that's used for greenhouse growers to be able to plan lighting systems or growth patterns of their plants or energy modeling. We're going to be coming out with a new version of that, hopefully by the end of the year. There was a hiring freeze in the federal government for about 3 years, ended last year. So we're going to be able to fill some of those vacancies now and release a new version of the software. But we've got a lot of big plans for it. We're going to improve the energy modeling capabilities using a lot of my previous research, improve the lighting system capabilities, to be able to do more sophisticated cost comparisons, and specify custom geometry for your buildings. We also want to have a research mode that's kind of more technical, more advanced for university and government researchers to be able to use the software to do some of the research that we've done previously. Done a lot of work with uniformity of lighting systems. So if you look at the system on the left, you see kind of a bullseye pattern, and that's really what happens every time you have lights that are in a plane that are equally spaced. You're pretty much guaranteed to get a bullseye pattern, especially on smaller greenhouses and shelves. So we've done a lot of work on how to optimize that to make a more uniform lighting system, either by changing spacing or changing intensity of individual lights. So we're going to continue some of that work. Near field optimization. So this is basically the issue of if you have short distance between lights and plants, all the other techniques for measuring light don't really work because they're meant for long distances. So we're developing specialized modeling and measurement techniques to address the unique uniformity issues of very close light to canopy systems. Drones and greenhouses. So there's a lot of big work being done in the field agriculture space with drones. We're going to bring some of that technology into the greenhouse, starting with light mapping, but then we're going to expand to machine vision applications. So, for example, being able to look in spectra that are outside of the human vision to look for disease indicators. So imagine a drone flying around your crop and it'll spot disease indicators before you're able to see it as a grower with your naked eye. So we're excited about that project. And I wanted to close with some just tips on if you're thinking about starting a new greenhouse business. These are some key things that free advice that I recommend. So, number one, do your due diligence before you build anything. Almost no one does this, in my opinion. They have great plans and energy, and that's great. But you really got to have somebody who knows the energy side of things, the HVAC side of things, lighting side of things, give you an accurate cost estimate, and see what you're getting into. You don't have to worry about this if you're in California, but in the Northeast, thermal curtain is huge. It's like probably the #1 thing you can do to save on your heating costs. Lighting control systems that minimize your use of supplemental light. Unfortunately, commercially available lighting control that's out there right now is still pretty rudimentary compared to what we have in the research world. So, we're working to try to bring some of that technology into the commercial space, but there's a long way to go. Of course, looking at your efficacy of your luminaires is important. Making sure you have the right amount of supplemental light, that you're not undersized. And then, a big one, which Nadia's going to talk more about this afternoon, is install HVAC systems that are appropriate for your situation, your location, your crop, the type of building you have. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to this, so you really need some good engineering there. Utility rate schedules. I see a lot of people that kind of get screwed by their utilities, unfortunately, because there's a lot of choice sometimes for the utility rate schedule that you can be placed on. You might be able to get a more advantageous one if you look into it a little bit more, because the basic schedule that you get put on might not be the most economically advantageous for your business. And then finally, check with the local utilities for available incentive programs. And I'll wrap it up there and look forward to your questions at the end.
Hi, hello everyone. Move up here so I can point to my slides. My name is Erico Mattos, and I am the director of the Greenhouse Lighting and Systems Engineering Consortium. I think what we just hear from our panelists here, it's a perfect setup for my talk. We come to life. We are a 7-year, $5 million project, and our goal is to develop, transfer, and implement new energy-efficient technologies to reduce the energy costs of lighting in greenhouses and indoor farms. So pretty much we can develop anything so then people like Tim, literally farms, technology takers, don't have to develop. It's ready to go. But we do that by working with the private and a lot of partners. What I want to talk here today, 4 quick topics. Our program is very comprehensive, so I'm just going to do a quick overview in 4 quick things. We're talking about futures, farms of the future here. So the first one is models to accelerate technology development, de-risk, and bring those technologies to market. With GLASE, we work with 5 main pillars here. We're working with manufacturers, so lighting manufacturers, sensors and controls, greenhouse growers, retailers, and policymakers or energy efficient companies, service providers. We work with 3 academic partners, which is Cornell University, Rutgers University, and Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute in New York and New Jersey, and we are funded by the state of New York. But we are a public-private consortium, so that means we work with several industry members to really de-risk this technology development process. We're constantly interacting with them to understand, find the gaps between those different segments, and understand what we are developing. That is a technology that is ready to go to the market at the right price and at the right time, can solve a problem. And we've seen recently that this model has been more and more adopted, is becoming more common because it makes a lot of sense. Here I have 3 other examples. There is this program named LAMP, led by University of Georgia. It's a $5 million program, and you have several collaborators there to minimize costs of lighting. You have Optimi IA that's recently awarded. The leading universities, Michigan University, really focus on reducing the costs of indoor farm. So again, they work with several institutions sponsored by the USDA. And we have new institutions like the RII. You have too many members, so I didn't put the members here. But I think the main goal here is you're working in 5 different categories. So bringing all these different moving parts together, we have to collaborate. That's how we're going to that's how I see the futures, the greenhouses of the future and indoor farms of the future as well. So I want to give now 1 quick example of integrated technology that's only possible when we are working together. We call LASSI, which is Light and Shade System Implementation. That's something Kale just mentioned, one of the control systems to optimize lighting delivery in greenhouses, and aspects of that can be used in indoor farms as well. So what LASSI does is it monitors the ambient. So the first aspect here is the environment. It's monitoring how much sun is being provided throughout the day. And based on that, calculates how much supplemental lighting should be provided to achieve a certain DLI, day light integral. So you can see here, we are measuring from June to July 19. I know that's a sunny period of the year, but the reason I did that is because we also control shade. Some of the DLI controllers available, they will provide more light, but they do not control shade. So here's a true DLI control. So the first aspect is controlling DLI. You can see here the green line is the target DLI, and then you have the red and blue. It's an LED lighting systems and an HPS lighting system. So you get really close to the target every day. Second aspect here, trying to integrate the control systems. Looking at the plants now. So how plants respond to lighting and CO2. If you understand that, one of the examples that I have here, it's Albion. It's a strawberry crop. And what we see here is the net assimilation, CO2 per meter square per second in micromoles, versus light intensity. So we have 500 micromoles, 1,000, 1,500, and 2,000 under different CO2 concentrations. I want one take out of this graphic, which is under different CO2 concentrations, you can achieve the same net assimilation, which we are here about 7. You can get at 500 micromoles, you get a 7 under 675 ppm. I think that's it, I can hear exactly from here. But if you use a higher CO2 concentration, which is now 900, 975, you get the same assimilation using 30% less energy. So you can achieve that under 350 micromoles light intensity throughout giving the same DLI. So there are significant savings if you can control together lighting and CO2. Now, the last aspect that I think is really playing a big role into the future is now looking at the grid, the energy. We call day-ahead market price. So this graphic here shows how the peaks vary throughout the year. So I have all the hours of the year. And the red line here is the average price. It's about 17 gigawatts. and the peak price is about 32. So energy price, the average energy price is 40% lower than the peak time. So what we want to do here, we want to integrate these three variables. So we're looking for the environment, we're looking for the crops, and we're looking for the grid. How can you make decisions having all these inputs to provide the same amount of light every day that you need for a crop using the minimum amount of energy? So this is carbon reduction. What do we do with that? To show the savings that is possible. Here's a quick setup that we did. So we run an integrated model using GEM, Greenhouse Energy Model, is one of the available models that Kale talked about. We pick Ithaca in New York as the location. Target DLI was 17 moles per meter square per day. Two different lighting levels at the crop, one at 180 micromoles, one at 250. The on-peak electricity costs we use 0.12 cents, off-peak 0.08 cents, and then CO2 costs at 50 cents per kilogram. Results are pretty impressive what happened. Using the basic LASI control, looking just to the environment, would cost in dollars per meter square per year about $28 under the 180 micromoles light level, and about $18 under the 250 micromoles light level. If we use the different technologies, now we talk LASI, and then the second one was lighting, environment plus CO2. The third one, the day-ahead market price and LASI, so the grid and the environment. And the last one combining grid, plant physiology, which is the CO2 supplementation, and LASI. We come down to about $9 and about $60. That means almost 70% less energy than the basic control and 60% less energy under the second light level. So that's pretty significant. Now, the problem is how we take these technologies and implement on the market. We have these available in the research. That's why we have to work with companies. We have to collaborate. We're going to implement these technologies in 2 commercial greenhouses in New York, which are part of the GLASE Consortium. One named SAF Produce in Berlin, New York. One Whitfield Gardens in Buffalo, New York. And they will be, over the next 4 years, implementing these technologies so we can create a baseline right now to show how much they're spending right now. And over the next 3 years, we're going to be implementing environmental part of the control with LASI, then CO2 LASI, then DAM CO2 LASI, which is the day-ahead market CO2 LASI. Now, pretty quick here, data analysis is going to be another big part of the greenhouse of the future. Here I have 2 examples using a similar lighting control to LASI, but we control just lighting, not shade. In this case, it's a greenhouse in Georgia. You can see on the blue, this is data from November all the way to February. The blue bars represent the amount of sunlight irradiation we get at the crops, and the green lights, supplemental lighting. With an intelligent lighting control that we can keep modulating the lights, we are trying to get close to the target, the DLI target, which is the red line over here. What I want to show, the difference in data analysis, you don't have to look at the prices exactly here. What I really want to show here is the difference between a greenhouse in Georgia, where you have certain environment, and one in New York during the similar amount of time. In New York, to achieve the same DLI, the lights basically needs to be on all the time because the weather is really different from Georgia. Now, if you don't have a dynamic lighting system, you're going to be on all the time or half part of the time. Take a look what happened at the last few days here in Georgia and the last few days in New York. We have a bad week in Georgia, and then the intelligent lighting control system, just bring your lights on as much as is needed, so then you can ensure the crop quality. Now, in New York, it's the other way around. You get a few good days, the lighting control system kicks in and saves energy for you, and you can get to the same DLI every day, or close as maximum as you can. So the importance of data analysis is going to be huge moving to the future. Last one, very quick, is the lighting load demand response. I think that's the very important one for us to keep in mind. The IESO, which is the Independent Electricity Systems Operator in Canada, put up this big report talking about the importance of managing the loads. Those are peaks, electricity peak time throughout the year, so they are foreseeing that they're going to need to work with the greenhouse to reduce the load when necessary through December through March, and then here are the hours of the day when you have these peak hours. I don't want to go too much into the detail here, but I want to, for this crowd that is horticultural lighting, there are technologies that can reduce the energy load over these peak times, but they're not looking to the crops. So we have to understand what's happening with the crops. Can they take this amount of load? Can we reduce? How many times of the year can we do this? How much can we reduce the light for the crops? And that can only be assessed if we know what's happening with the crops and the environment in real time. So I think that will be a big part of the greenhouses of the future and indoor farms of the future, having them connect to the grid and making these smart decisions considering the crops as well. That's it for now. We are with GLASE, so we have a ton of educational outreach information. If you want to learn more about, you can go to the website, you can sign to the newsletter, and I hope you guys have good questions for us right now. Thank you so much.
So yesterday we were shown a slide that showed a pie chart, and on that pie chart it showed that greenhouses use proportionately more heating energy, or at least gas, I don't know what it's used for necessarily, than an indoor facility. And I was wondering if any of you could speak to that trend that we saw and why gas use might be higher in a greenhouse, and if you would expect the same trend for a greenhouse where you guys are located. And I realize we don't have anyone from southern states and the Sun Belt represented up here, but if you could also maybe speak to if you have any experience there of if we might see different energy trends.
Yeah, the greenhouse energy profile is definitely very climate dependent. So in the northern states, you have a lot of natural gas use or some other heating fuel. You also have less sunlight, so you typically need more supplemental light than you do in the south. As you go south, that heating energy goes down, but the lighting energy also goes down. Cooling doesn't change too much. If you're able to use evaporative cooling, you're basically just blowing fans. The Southeast is a special case, and I bet Nadi will talk more about that this afternoon. But in general, energy consumption goes down for the greenhouse as you go south, and it's a dramatic decrease. However, we can still, have profitable greenhouses in the Northeast. Little Leaf Farms is a great example of that. So you just need the right systems for that location.
Anything else? For you, Tim, for Little Leaf, are you guys enriching with carbon dioxide?
Oh, yeah. We capture basically all our flue gases off of the boiler, and we pump it into, basically we're a semi-closed greenhouse, so we have a pelham wall, and we have, call them slurps underneath, so there's about 95 fans, and what we're doing is we're circulating the air through the greenhouse. It comes back in, and we're measuring the temperature in that, and we're putting the CO2 in there. So the CO2 and the temperature of the greenhouse is modulated by that back wall. So what will happen is when it's cool outside, we'll bring cold air in from the outside, mix it in with the air that's coming through the greenhouse, put the CO2 in, and that's because we're an NFT system. The slurps are underneath the crop, so we got nice airflow that's going through, as well as CO2 distribution. So yeah, we capture all the CO2. And then when we're not running the boiler, we actually buy liquid CO2 and bring it in and supplement CO2 levels because it's important for the crop.
Interesting. I heard a commercial, I have a friend who's a commercial greenhouse tomato grower in Canada, and he said that 50% of his energy bill can actually be running the boilers, not just for heating, but for CO2. So they use the flue gas from the boilers even on a hot, sunny day to enrich with carbon dioxide. Yep. Yes, please.
We had, so Tim talked about the Dutch industry at the beginning, and we had one of the webinars with GLASE, was someone from there talking about cogeneration heat and power. And that's something that can really help here. So one of the cases, our commercial pilots with field gardens, they do buy a lot of gas, so they run the boilers and then they just generate their own electricity out of that. And if you have better prices on gas than the electricity from the grid, you can do that. In some cases, according to the Dutch guys, they might even sell energy back to the grid. Was more profitable than running the greenhouse in some cases. So it's, if you have access to cheap natural gas, that could be one option as well.
Then that goes to your site carbon footprint versus your out of sight, out of mind carbon footprint too, right? Because you're generating combustion gases on site. So thank you for speaking to that. My last question that I want to ask before I give it to the audience is, in your mind, I want to hear from the growers too. I mean, we heard a lot from Kale and Erico about your ideas for sort of the future of greenhouses, but I still want to hear from you, which is what does the greenhouse of the future look like? Does it look like what we see today? Is it a taller greenhouse? Is it a greenhouse with new covers? Is it a greenhouse that is highly automated? What does this look like?
Yeah, I'll speak to the automation piece. I mean, the biggest thing that keeps growers, and I think Tim would agree, or is a little more automated than mine, but is just labor. So we're looking into all different types of robotics. For tomatoes, tomatoes are very labor intensive, so we require a lot of employees. So we'll be looking at different labor enhancing, not replacing, but labor enhancing technologies, working with a couple of companies now that are developing tomato picking robots and just ways to supplement our labor force. Robots can work 24 hours, people can't. So I think robotics will play a big piece in the greenhouse of the future.
Yeah, I mean, the labor issue is huge. We're looking at, so basically we have an automated system. I mean, nobody touches the lettuce at all. I mean, the seeding's automated, the gutters come through the greenhouse, it's automated, comes out. You saw it on the video, comes out, goes straight through the cutting station, into the weigher. The only people that we have working are the packing people. The next round of infrastructure that we put in, those jobs can also be replaced with further automation. I think the technology piece of the greenhouse industry, it's continuing. I mean, we started with 2.5 acres. It's just sort of like to figure out, the new system and everything. Like I said, we're technology takers, but we improved on them quite a bit. Our vendors worked with us in terms of increasing efficiencies and tweaking it. So we made significant tweaks from the first greenhouse to the second greenhouse, and then it's even the further than the next greenhouse that's going to be opening up in May. There's the next level on that, and that's everything from the glass that we bought. We went to a higher level diffused glass to basically our lighting algorithm. We have LEDs as well as high pressure sodium. In terms of our watering system and our filtration systems, I mean, we've redesigned that as well. And then also, as we're learning from our vertical friends, it's like, okay, how do you maximize the efficiencies of, we believe in greenhouses, we believe in doing things horizontally as opposed to vertically, but there are some aspects where you can use different layering techniques in terms of maximizing space. So, yeah, it's on the biggest thing is that there's going to be just a lot more greenhouses. It's coming, and people that are doing it have been doing it for a while, and they're pretty good at it. So
why
they're ready
are
for the
greenhouses on the upward trend? I mean, both of you mentioned being close to market, but is that the whole story?
I think Tim said a lot of it's about the product and just being closer to the market. I mean, as us, we're competing with Mexican tomatoes, which are picked and put on a truck and sprayed with a chemical to ripen on the way to the U.S. in 10 days drive. So we can be closer to the markets where it's a 1 day's drive, 70% of the U.S. population, and we can keep them on the vine longer, they get sweeter, they have more nutrition, and they have longer shelf life. So, I mean, really the product is, I think, what's going to drive this in the long run here.
And that's it. I mean, it's product quality, but it's also consistency. Basically, with the greenhouse, you go 52 weeks out of the year where you're not only delivering a high quality product, but it's a consistently high quality product, as opposed to our friends in field agriculture that, basically do a very, very good job, but they're dependent upon the weather. So there's going to be swings in terms of seasonality. There's always the food safety issue that comes up. I mean, this past year, you almost could set your watch to the second recall. It's like, the first one was at Thanksgiving, and then almost a year to the date, there was another recall.
Yeah.
So that's not going to go, and that's not going to go away. So, I mean, all those things basically have people running towards, like, the greenhouse industry is, I think, the future of agriculture.
Do you guys sell, I'm sorry, one last question. I can't help myself. Do you guys sell your product on a unit basis or a weight basis?
Unit basis.
Unit basis.
Yeah. So the way that it works, basically to figure out what your unit economics are, the grocery store wants to figure out what the price point is. So price points are for packaged lettuce is basically anywhere from $2.99 to $3.99. Anything over $4 is sort of like Death Valley if you're going to be of scale. So you have to understand what the consumer preference is and working with the retailers. So if you can get your unit economics where the retailer can make their margin at a $2.99 to $3.99, and then realize that if you have to promote, you go down to a 2 for $5 and still make those margins. That's the baseline of figuring out what your business model is.
I've heard that that can also be a driver for being close to market, is that if you're selling by weight and not necessarily by unit, and your price is dependent on the weight where you sell it, that being closer to market, the weight of your lettuce or your tomato or whatever is going to be higher than if you traveled 3,000 miles.
For commodity-based businesses, yes.
Okay.
But for the business that we're in, it's more like a CPG, a consumer packaged good, that you're selling a unit
Got it.
as opposed to pounds.
Got it. Okay. All right. Your turn. I promise. Okay. We got 7 or 8 minutes.
Good morning. So nice not to be in the hot seat myself. So first, a shameless plug for Little Leaf, because I am a Massachusetts official and I have to support local agriculture, but also it's delicious. We're a Little Leaf family. Question for you, for the regulators, because there's at least one in the room. If you had a wish list of anything that could be done legislatively or regulatorily to help promote greenhouses, what would be on that wish list?
We have one big one. It's got a little bit pie in the sky, but we're really trying to go after an investment tax credit similar to what was given to wind and solar. And we saw that industry explode over the past 10, 15 years. It was the #1 job creator in the U.S. during that time, and a lot of that can be pushed back to that 30% investment tax credit. So that's, I mean, it's a big lift, but that's one we're going after in D.C.
I've just got a simple one. It's like basically have USDA and FDA look at greenhouse, especially leafy green industry, do a deeper dive to understand it, so we could just do something as simple as put ready to eat on our package.
Yeah.
Which, believe it or not, is a huge hurdle for us to climb.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I have a question regarding the way you're growing inside the greenhouses. What's your, I guess, the panel's opinion on living soil versus all the bottled inputs? Do you see, or are you trying, or are you going that way, or are you currently doing that?
I mean, we're growing hydroponically in rock wool, so no living soil.
Yeah, so are you asking rock wool versus peat versus soil? Is that the question? Or so we started out with a rock wool system, okay, in terms of with the NFT gutter system that we were doing, but we are transitioning over to peat. When we first started, we figured that we had enough challenges that we were going to try things for the first time. We wanted to make sure that we had seed placement and to understand sort of like what the growth cycles are and root health, et cetera, et cetera. So the rock wool was a proven entity. But since then, we've done a lot of trials with peat, so the third greenhouse will be completely peat.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Hi, my question's for Dave, but maybe Tim, you can answer as well. I understand part of your model was to be in Kentucky, a day's drive, but can you talk about your site selection? Did you work with your utility and on hookups, or do you power on site?
Yeah, so we got lucky. I mean, the first site we tried to grow on top of a reclaimed coal mine in Pikeville. So there's, I think, in Appalachia, there's the landmass the size of Delaware that's been mountaintop removal coal mine. So there's a lot of reclaimed coal mine. It looked like a spectacular site. It had elevation, everything you kind of need for a greenhouse. The issue was differential settlement. We got the geotech report back. It's like there's no way you can build on the site. There's 800 foot of fill, and it's going to settle differentially and break your greenhouse into a million pieces. So that we had to pivot very quickly. We just kind of got lucky on finding a great site in Moorhead, Kentucky. So we worked with anybody and everybody we could, and just found a great site. We spent a lot of time on site selection. So we've got a development team looking at future sites pretty much full time.
Did you want to answer to that, Tim, too?
No, you got it. Yeah, no, I mean, site selection is huge. We worked with, the Massachusetts Department of Development, and then the DEC, Devon's Enterprise Commission, the town that we're in, is an old Army base that they decommissioned quite a bit of the property. So actually, that's how we got the site, but it was all working with them in terms of you have to figure out longitude, latitude, basically elevations. You want to make sure you've got enough rainfall so you can capture water, all of the above. So it's a lengthy process.
I think my question is to Tim too. You mentioned about quality of letters is what customers are buying, and when we talk about hydroponic or greenhouse, the technology has to be reputable and scalable. For example, one day, right next to your 5 acres farm, some rich guy invests and created 50 acres, same technology and same quality. Technically, he can produce, 30, 50% less lettuce compared to yours. So I guess my question is, how do you differentiate from yourself, from the scaling industry, and also sustaining quality on your products?
Well, so I appreciate the question. So the first thing is you set a standard that's tough to meet. Which sounds, people are building these greenhouses and they think that anybody can do it. It is difficult. And you've got to have, we've been, tacking, Paul's an ex-Cornell guy. The first thing you have to do is get growers. And in terms of getting high quality growers, Peter, our grower, came over from the Netherlands, but since then we've had a pipeline from Cornell bringing grad students in and training them up to have full-time grower jobs. So that's a huge investment that we're taking, and you have to grow your own growers to begin with. Second thing is in terms of varietal selection, figuring out there's a lot of varieties out there. We were very fortunate to get a really good variety that we've been running with, and we just got, basically we've got an exclusive on this. We just worked a deal with the seed company to get an exclusive on the seed for the area that we'll be marketing in. And then the third thing is bring it on. Competition's going to come. We're in terms of where we are in the Northeast, we're up against Gotham, Bright Farms, Leaf Farms. Competition is the best grower is going to rise to the top. So even if you're going to be able to do it at scale, and if the only thing you have to compete against me is price, I can handle that. It's we're working on our unit economics to figure out where we need to be, but if we're in front of the consumer and meeting that expectation, we're going to be, the young lady already said, she goes, we get fan mail all the time about our product. So we've got to make sure that we're constantly hammering that home so that the barriers of entry are tough.
Thank you to our panelists, and thank you to your questions.